Hello, and welcome to the Muse Lab, your destination for all things spiritual, sensual, and pleasurable. Here I explore the nuances of our human experience, connect with practitioners to support your glow up, and share my lessons and blessings as perspective to move you closer to alignment and self-empowerment. I invite you to join me on this adventure of discovery and hope what you receive inspires you to become the muse of your life's journey. So without further ado, let's explore. Hello, and welcome to the Muse Lab podcast. It's your girl, Siobhan L., and I am going to talk about something personal. This isn't the first time I've talked about something personal, but I want to also leave a content warning. I'm not going to be talking about abuse, but I am going to be talking about mental health. And for some people, particularly those of you who may have grown up in a home where mental health was dismissed or not included, that may activate some memories that you may have tried to put behind you or bury or heal from. So it's not going to be that type of conversation. Again, this is not about abuse, but it is about the prevalence of mental health, mental illness in Black communities and Black families, and how that constantly gets swept under the rug and the impact that it has future forward. So I'm a caregiver, and I've shared this before in previous episodes that I am a caregiver, and I'm a caregiver by default. My parents are not at the caregiving stage. I am helping my mother with my grandparents. My grandmother and grandfather had 2 children. I have an uncle. He does not live near us. Just recently, he's had his own physical health challenges, but prior to that, my uncle has not been an active participant. I love my uncle dearly. He's not been an active participant in ensuring that his parents are having some semblance of quality of life and are doing well. And he is the oldest, but a lot of people don't see that or recognize that. They think my mother is the oldest. She is the baby. She's the youngest child. But because her and I live here, and these are her parents, and I know my mother has her own physical disabilities, I assist her with taking on the work, because I don't want to call it a burden, but taking on the work of caring for my grandparents, and not just my grandparents, my grandmother's, I'm going to say eldest cousin, but back in those days, people's birth times and years and all those things were not properly recorded. So who knows? But they know each other to be, or how they were raised, as my grandmother is the eldest and she is the youngest. I do not think I do not think that's what happened. But my grandmother's cousin also, it lives with us. So my mother and I have been active participants in ensuring that she also receives the care that she needs. And I'm not going to hold you, I'm exhausted as fuck. I'm exhausted. And on my grandmother's side, there is a history of mental illness. And I have old school Southern Black grandparents, and they were raised not to acknowledge mental illness in the family. You have family members that may have had some prevalence of mental illness. There wasn't much to diagnose back in those days. The medical advancements in the 21st century are far beyond what they were back in the 40s, 50s, and even 60s. So there are family members who may have been raised with other family members because somebody had the capacity to handle that, or they were kept away from the larger population to ensure their safety. Because now we're talking about a Black child in Jim Crow South with a mental illness that makes them even more of a target. So there are parts of me that understand why mental illness back in those times had to be concealed, and it was for safety reasons, right? But now, as we get further past the 20th century into the 21st century, unfortunately, there's still that prevalence of hiding people who have mental illness or other type of mental disabilities, cognitive disabilities. So without revealing too much, I am certain that family members who I am caregiving have mental illness and have had some form of mental illness probably all my life, because you don't know what symptoms are for things like bipolar disorder. You don't know what the symptoms are for schizophrenia. You don't know what the symptoms are for other mental illnesses. You don't really know the symptoms for ADHD. You don't really know the symptoms for autism. All you know is that these people who may have these specific disabilities are different. That's all you recognize, is that these particular people think different, move different, process information differently, may not be as sharp as you, or they are sharp, but not in the way that you would perceive them to be. They don't have a neurotypical way of viewing the world, way of thinking. Maybe their moods are very fluctuating, very flux, and you can't decipher what mood they're going to be in. So you always have to walk on eggshells. And now people in the family know not to mess with aunt so and so, not to mess with uncle so and so, because they moody, or they never in their right frame of mind, or they just be talking, saying crazy stuff, talking out their head, talking out their ass. And nobody recognizes that these may be symptoms of bipolar disorder. These may be symptoms of schizophrenia and other forms of mental illness. Nobody knows these things because these conversations are not had in the family and in communities. So you have people who are now 70, 80, 90 years old who have developed dementia or Alzheimer's over time. But when they were in their 30s, 40s, maybe even 20s, they had bipolar disorder. They were schizophrenic or whatever other mental illness. Maybe they may have been on the spectrum with autism. And they've had these disabilities their whole lives. And now they've transitioned or progressed into something more dire, and nobody knows how to navigate this. Aside from the fact that nobody knows how to navigate this, you start noticing certain things within yourself. Oh, I'm just moody like Uncle so and so. I'm just I don't know. I be seeing things, or I be hearing things like Auntie so and so, or like my grandmother. I notice my grandmother has these particular characteristics, and I'm just kind of like my grandmother. No, no, no. You probably have a mental illness, and you probably need to go get evaluated and see a psychiatrist. But see, when you tell somebody to go see a therapist or go see a psychiatrist, they go, "Oh, I don't want to go into a crazy house." We don't live in that kind of society anymore. It's not like in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s where they try to give you a lobotomy. there's not that. There's therapeutics for that. There are herbs for that, actually. If you don't want to use any type of chemicals or put any type of pharmaceuticals into your body, there are actual herbal concoctions that you can use to help minimize and remedy those systems. Do they have that immediate relief that you're looking for? No. You have to be consistent with it, and you have to use it in a regimen over 30 and 90-day period in order to see some results, but it will get you the results. But if you're looking for something that's going to help you within the first 12 to 24 hours, then you have to spend your money or use your insurance or do whatever you need to do to get a therapeutic. But either way, there are solves, there are solutions to help minimize symptoms. Because here's what my therapist told me. When I was learning how to manage my ADHD symptoms and learning how to live with this new perspective that I have, because I've had that ADHD isn't something that just develops over time. One, it's genetic, and two, you've had it all your life. No one knew what that was, or that you may have needed some form of diagnosis or evaluation, because somehow you just learn how to mask. You learned how to adapt to the life that you live. Nobody knew that I had ADHD when I was a child, because I was always on a routine. And when you keep yourself on a schedule as an ADHDer, that keeps you in a flow, and you just learn how to adapt. But see, I used to talk in class. I used to talk in class because I would be the first person finished with my work. Always. I was always the first person finished with my work. And I would run through my work so quickly, and I would look around and be like, damn, ain't nobody else finished? So now I'm talking to the neighbor to the right of me. I'm talking to the neighbor to the left of me. I'm talking to the neighbor behind me. I'm sitting there, I'm fidgeting with my stuff. I'm antsy. I'm getting bored because, like, why is nobody else finished? Why is this taking everybody so long? And I thought maybe something was wrong with everybody else. And not to say that there was something wrong with me, but it's just my ability to absorb and process information and certain subjects that just gravitated to me. I used to run through shit so fast. But see, I had teachers that didn't like the fact that I was done, because how could you be done? Everyone else is still working. How are you the first person finished? So now I'm being told to recheck my answers, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I know my answers are correct. No, you may not. You should always double check your work. You need to check your work and stop talking. So fine. I listen to the teacher because that's an adult. They should know what they're talking about. I check my work. I second guess myself. I change my answers. Now half of my answers are wrong. And I'm pissed at myself, because if I had never gone back and second guessed myself and thought maybe I didn't have the right answer because the teacher planted that seed in my head, I would have aced this assignment, or I would have been fine with the test. But now it's jarring my confidence. So someone like me, who has the type of ADHD that I have, I'm inattentive and hyperactive. Someone like me who is already masking without knowing start to mimic that type of thought process. It's like, oh, I always got to check my work, always got to check my work, not to ensure that there are no typos or that you're confident with your answer. But maybe your answer is wrong. So you start planting that seed in a child's head, and envelops into weeds in their mental garden. So now they're just not confident with anything. And now they're hesitating with turning into work. And now they're the last person to finish their work instead of the first person. Because when I was the first person, now the teacher would come for me, or I'm getting in trouble because I'm talking. So maybe let me slack a little bit. And that slacking turns into procrastination. So you see how when people don't recognize certain symptoms as a child, as a young person, you start second guessing, or you start adjusting yourself, because adults must know what they're doing because they're adults. And you don't realize that over time that you have reconfigured your entire personality, your entire DNA makeup, to adjust to the neurotypical world when you already know what you're doing and you just needed somebody to ensure that you were confident in what you were doing, or that you had something else to do while other people were working. So I did have some teachers that had me get up and go write my answers on the board and lead the class, but not every teacher was like that. It wasn't enough to not have me become a procrastinator, second guess myself, go back, change my work, or sit in silence and be fidgeting and be uncomfortable or be bored or be falling asleep in class. It wasn't enough. So when people don't know what the signs are, you do those who are struggling a disservice because they don't know what's wrong with them. And because they're not moving the way all the other neurotypical people are moving, now I have to be the crazy one because everyone else is moving this particular way. Why am I not moving this particular way? So there has to be something wrong with me. Why am I not fitting into the norm? Why am I not fitting into the culture? So maybe I do need to isolate myself because I have challenges adapting to society or adapting to friend circles or being social or engaging with people, or I need to go sit in a corner when I'm at work because the office is so stimulating. I don't know how to navigate that. And I got to put headphones on or wear earbuds and have soft music on. But my boss doesn't like that because they're always looking for me in the office. Even though I find a way to have a soft corner or a corner to myself, my work still gets done. But part of the culture and in corporate spaces in particular, people want you to be interactive. They want you to talk to people. They want you to build relationships. But you don't have the capacity to do that because that shit is overstimulating. So now your boss is coming for you, making it seem like you're not being a team player when really you just don't want to talk to these motherfuckers because it's too much for you. So now you have a target on your back. People think you're antisocial. People think you're siloing yourself. People think that you don't want to have relationships or build relationships. You don't want to collaborate with them. And what you do, you just prefer them to send you a Teams link or a Zoom link, and you rather just talk over the computer as opposed to all these niggas being in your face, sitting in a meeting for 90 minutes and people expecting you to have coherency. It just don't work like that. So that's the challenge. Managing things that you don't know exist is the challenge. So when I started having conversations with my therapist about how to adapt my life to having ADHD, she had to set expectations and say, your symptoms are not going to go away. How you think is not going to change. So you're not navigating this to change who you are to back to who you need to be, or a person that moves in a different way. What you need to do is know how to manage your symptoms. And when people don't know that, who may have a mental disability, mental illness, when you don't know that there's no cure, that it's about adapting your life to this new point of view that you have, if nobody tells you that, you go through life struggling, literally thinking something is wrong with you. I went through my entire life thinking that something was wrong with me. So when we don't have these conversations, you start going through life afraid of people in your family, afraid of people that you should be close to, afraid of people that you should be able to love freely. You tiptoe around folk. You don't have much conversation with certain people. You don't establish close relationships with certain people. That starts to create stigmas in the head and narratives in the head. And now you've created this story about this particular cousin, about this particular aunt, about this particular uncle that probably doesn't really exist. But because nobody has the decency to explore why so and so may be acting and responding in this way, it just creates narratives about that person, and it stigmatizes that person, and it isolates that person, whether it's intentional or not. But the impact is so great that you don't realize how DNA works and genetics. And just because Uncle Bruce or Uncle John or Aunt Peony and whoever may have had mental illness or mental health challenge, and your mother didn't get it, your other uncles didn't get it, your other cousins didn't get it, but you got it. If you don't understand how genetics works and that certain qualities and attributes can skip people and hit somebody 4 generations down the line, if you don't recognize that, you'll be trying to figure out, why are you the person that has any type of mental disability, mental illness, and nobody else in your immediate family has it. And that's because genetics doesn't really pick and choose. Genetics just happens how it does. It doesn't just stay in one person. Genetics is genetics. My uncle on my father's side, most of my family members on my father's side have light color eyes. My uncle, my father's youngest brother, one of the younger brothers, his eyes change color with his mood. There's about 19 grandchildren. Amongst my grandmother's 5 boys is about 19 grandchildren. One of my cousins, who's not my uncle's daughter, is the one that got the eyes that change color. It skipped all of us. Some of us don't even have light eyes. My father's eyes change color. They're not as prominent as my uncle. My father's eyes change color with the season. They get a little lightish brown. My other uncle, his eyes are hazel green. But the rest of us just got regular ass brown eyes. But my one cousin, who's my other uncle's daughter, her eyes change color. And it's just her. It's not her sister. It's just her. Her eyes change color with her mood. That's how genetics works. It only takes one person in the family DNA to have a prevalence. And it may not hit the next generation over or 2 generations over, but it might hit you. And if nobody can trace back to the root, you'll just be confused as to why you are the one that receive a genetic marker and nobody else. Because we don't have these conversations within the family. Black mental health is serious. The time of this recording is July 2025, which is National Minority Mental Health Month, created by the incomparable, rest in peace, B.B. Campbell Moore. She experienced her own mental health challenges, and because of that, created this alliance. NAMI, believe it is. National Alliance for Mental Health. I forgot what the I means, but NAMI. She created that to destigmatize mental health in the Black community, and not just Black communities, and all communities of color. Because I'm speaking from the Black experience, but I'm pretty sure in the Hispanic, Latin American culture, it's the same thing. In Southeast Asian cultures, it's the same thing. Across the African diaspora, it is the same thing in Caribbean families, so on and so forth. Mental health is the same. We hide those things. And I get why we hide those things from the outside world. But internally, we have to start having these conversations and taking steps to find solutions, because when we don't, again, we do a disservice to the person who is having this experience. They don't have language to communicate to other people what they are experiencing. They don't know how to properly engage with people from this perspective that they now have to view the world. They don't know how to manage their symptoms or know that they should just be managing their symptoms. And they spend a lot of mental energy trying to change and shift themselves and adapt, or not even adapt, try to get back time that they lost, because now I have this disability and now my world is shifted because I can't unsee it. I can't navigate the world blindly anymore. I can't really mask the way that I have been masking, which I didn't even know masking was a thing. I can't do that anymore because now I know I have this disability. But I also don't want people to treat me differently. I don't want people to coddle me. I don't want people to treat me like I'm some delicate piece of paper that if I touch it wrong, it crumbles or it crushes or it wrinkles. I don't want people to start handling me a specific way that's different from how they've been interacting with me before they knew I had this mental disability. I don't want people to stigmatize me. I don't want people to ostracize themselves from me. So I don't know how to navigate that. So when we don't allow someone to receive the help that they need and deserve, they don't know how to navigate the world with this new lens, with this new perspective. So here I am, prioritizing my mental health as a caregiver, navigating clear signs of mental illness with my grands, and I'm just aggravated. I'm aggravated because, like, what the fuck? What the fuck? You just, you start listening to people having conversations and you start noticing things that are hard to be unnoticeable, that are very standout. And you have to start tracing back, like, damn, were they always like this? Yes, they were. They just had more cognitive strength to mask. And when somebody is an expert at masking, regardless of whether they realize they're masking or not, you don't actually know who they are. And you realize as you are maybe assisting with your elders, whomever they may be, you realize how much you don't know these people. And that the person that you have been interacting with this whole time was just an adaptation of who they are so that you wouldn't notice that something was off. My elder cousin, who we are assisting with, she has glaucoma. She has glaucoma because she didn't want to wear her glasses. So you deal with that, right? You deal with some of your elders who are vain and don't want to be seen a certain way, don't want to be stigmatized as old, or whatever they tell themselves. And they'll do themselves a disservice and they won't wear corrective lenses. They won't exercise the way they need to. They be eating pork rinds and chitlins and all this other stuff all their lives. And they mamas ate it and their grandmamas ate it and their great grandmamas ate it. And they live to be 110, 105 and so all these other things. But for some reason, at 87, you've been following the same regimen, but your body is slowly shutting down. And in order to pause the progression of your body shutting down, you now have to shift your food regimen. You have to eat more cruciferous vegetables. You have to have proper amounts of protein. You need to minimize your starch. You need to cut out the sugar. You need to cut out the coffee. But no, they don't want to do that because this is how they be eating their whole life. So now you got to deal with those things, right? So when you have elders who are too stubborn to see the benefit of little tiny shifts, not complete overhauls of their life, but little tiny shifts, when they're too stubborn to just allow themselves to adapt and start something new or create something new that is going to extend their quality of life, they don't realize the impact later down the line when they don't want to make these necessary changes in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. They don't realize that, yeah, I might live to be 90, but I'm hanging on a string. I'm not like a vibrant 90. I'm kind of like a cooped up hospice 90. And you don't have to, not if there's an opportunity for you to shift some of the regression that's happening in your late 60s, early 70s, and even 80s. You have an opportunity to extend quality of life, survivorship. You may have been given a small window to live, but certain lifestyle shifts that you can take can increase survivorship. But when you have all Black Southern Christians who often do not resonate with the fact that even though your age is coming upon you, and that yes, the only two things that are guaranteed in life is that we're going to stay Black and die, that you don't have to rush your way to the Lord. That the Lord has given us tools as human beings to preserve ourselves so we are not doing the 100-meter dash to the finish line before we need to go. Because it's not always when it's my time, it's my time. Sometimes it ain't really your time. Sometimes you push yourself there. Sometimes you just let yourself go and then it becomes your time when it really wasn't. But since you decided that you wanted to go, since you saw now that you was comfortable going now, that it wasn't worth putting in the effort to increase survivorship for yourself. Fuck everybody else. It wasn't enough for you to increase survivorship for yourself. You just, well, I guess the Lord is going to take me, so I'm going to just lay down and die. Sometimes you look at some of your elders and be like, where is your fight? Like, you fought all your life to get to this moment. And now you just need to you don't even need to fight. You just need to do a little push, a little shift, a little pivot. And now you just ready to die. That don't be clicking. So it's hard to see your elders digress in such a way that it's like, have you always been this way? Did I not notice that you had these qualities? Did I not notice that you really didn't have the fight in you that we thought you did? Have you just been talking this whole time? You just knew how to be mean enough so nobody wouldn't fuck with you? It's a lot to unpack. And I'm exhausted. Not because I'm caregiving. Caregiving is tiring because it's a lot to do. I'm exhausted because there are so many preventable things that could have been done, and everybody was just too stubborn to move forward to do it. And oftentimes the excuse is, well, I didn't have the time. It's like, yeah, we know you didn't have the time. That's why we tried to help you. But as a caregiver, your willingness to help is in resistance with your elders' fight for independence, because it's not clicking for them that you are not trying to take away their independence, but you are trying to relieve some of the burden so that they have the energy and the strength to do the things that they desire to do. Those things, those dots are often connected. So when you're operating in resistance with somebody who feels their independence is being snatched from them, it becomes tiring. And you don't want to let them be, because you know if you let them be, where that's going to lead them. But you can't fight. You can't fight. You have to minimize the arguing, because you don't want to send their blood pressure into stroke level. You don't want them to have a hypertensive crisis. You don't want them to be going to bed all upset and angry. You don't want to see them get emotional and cry. Like, you don't want to cause undue stress And because you don't want to cause undue stress, you, as the person who is doing their best to be the caregiver, absorbs the stress that you don't want to cause them on top of the stress that you already have. It can be daunting. So when we don't have these conversations about mental illness in the family, and somebody is volunteering you to take care of someone who you didn't anticipate taking care of, and you see certain things and you don't know how to navigate it, and you want to actually get them evaluated so that they know how to properly move and they can get the care that they need, and people stop you and they stop you, it leaves you at an impasse. Because how the hell are you going to navigate this knowing this person has these particular symptoms that need to be managed, and they refuse to acknowledge that the symptoms exist even though it's clear as day? And now you're considering putting people in long-term care facilities because they're incapable of living independently, because it's a safety hazard. But they don't think it's a safety hazard because they're living in their own bubble of delusion. And you can't tell them anything because who are you? These people are grown. It is a cycle. It is a never-ending cycle. And I don't know if having more conversations about mental health and mental illness in Black communities and other non-Black communities will make a difference. But I know if the conversations are not had, if they're not broached, more people will be in similar situations like myself, and navigating that will be more than just a challenge. So, thank you for coming to my second audio journal. Thank you for listening to my therapy session. Whether what I said made sense, I don't know. I just know I'm very emotional. I'm emotionally drained at this time. I'm very much in my feelings. I'm very much confused and disturbed, not in a creepy way, but just disturbed by the heavy resistance that myself and my mom are receiving from our elders. And it is mentally exhausting. And navigating caring for your elders while also working a full-time job, while also trying to self-care, while also trying to be social, while also maybe trying to date and have your needs and desires met, travel, do the things, be a functioning adult. Those things are constantly clashing. So I can admit that I'm in a very sensitive space with everything, but also in a proactive space to really ensure that I care for my mental health so that I can minimize long-term impact that looks like my elders. I don't want to be the person that is so stubborn that I refuse the help that I genuinely need. I don't want to put my brother and my nephew and other family members in a awkward space where I'm fighting them tooth and nail to care for me, or setting myself up for failure, my future self in my latter ages, setting myself up for failure and not preparing myself and others to be able to assist me, because I don't have any kids. I mean, I have my nephew, but I can't guarantee that my nephew is going to be the person that cares for his TT. I don't know that. I have my brother. I'm not going to say my brother's not going to help me, but because my brother loves me. We are close siblings. But my brother has a family, and I don't want to add any extra burden that he might experience in his latter years with his family, raising his child. I don't want to cause undue stress because I didn't think of myself in the future to ensure that I allowed myself to be easily cared for. That's what's heavy on my mind. What what am I leaving behind for myself, or how am I preparing my future self for the future? How am I preparing myself in the present for the future? How am I caring for the future version of Siobhan? That's heavy because I'm looking at my elders and I'm like, yeah, y'all worked and you saved money, but adulting is more than just working and saving money so that you can enjoy it, which they ain't really enjoying it, but they they weren't my maternal grandparents weren't the people who traveled. They didn't go travel and go to different places. My grandfather's a deacon, so he wasn't the person that was about to travel. I don't even think my grandfather's ever been on a plane. So traveling was driving down south. That was traveling. It wasn't going to another state, or not another state. It wasn't like going across country, going to another country. I think the only country my grandfather and my grandmother have ever been to is Nova Scotia, which is in Canada. So that's as far as they've gone. So yeah, they worked hard and they retired. You know, they saved up enough money to be able to live comfortably, but that's it. And sometimes that works for people, but I'm gonna tell you right now that it ain't work for my grandmother. My grandmother thought she was gonna be outside, okay? And my grandfather is not like that. That's another conversation. I'll talk about it in a different context. But that is a conversation for another day. So I don't want to be working and working and working and saving and saving and saving and not be well enough to enjoy the fruits of my labor. So in addition to my mental health, my physical health, doing my best to get myself into a healthy shape and a healthy space that when I decide that I no longer want to contribute to capitalism, that I've not only financially, like my financial health is good, but my mental, my physical, my emotional, and my spiritual health is good. Because all those different forms of health, those different bodies that we have, that is important too. It's not just working and getting a job and saving your money and buying a house. First of all, I don't even know if I want a regular ass house because that shit is a lot of fucking work. So there's that. But it's not about acquiring the tangible things that you actually can't take with you. It's really about creating those moments and having experiences that will last with you forever and being able to document those things. But you got to be in your right mind to be able to do that. And if you're not in your right mind to be able to do that, what's the point? If you're not in the right physical shape to do that, what's the point? That is the part that I'm learning from this experience. How am I setting myself up to win in my latter years? Not just how am I setting myself up to win in the present. I have to think about the 80-year-old me. How am I setting her up to win? And I recognize that my elders didn't do that. They didn't set themselves up to win at this part of the timeline. So that's where I'm at. And I know that the time is winding down for my elders. I don't know when the time is, but the time is progressing. And my hope to have this time with my grands, I had to grieve because as the granddaughter, what I thought I was going to be doing with my grandparents, it didn't even come to fruition. I really thought I was going to be driving them around, taking them places where you need to go, where you need to be. Oh, we're going to do family vacations. Let's travel together. I really thought that was how I couldn't wait to get older so that I could, drive my grandmother around and her and I could go shopping and do all those things that we used to do when I was younger. But she didn't have to drive me. I could take her and I could spend a little bread on my Nana. Like, that's how I thought this time was going to be. And I had to grieve that because I'm not even close. I'm nowhere near what I envisioned. And that makes me sad because I just thought things would be so different. Like, you know, I wouldn't be rushing to being an adult because this is kind of trash. It's 10 out of 10. I don't know if I would recommend. But I couldn't wait to have enough money to be able to treat my Nana to things that she didn't really get to experience or things that she wanted to experience. I couldn't wait to do that. I was so excited to do that. Actually, all my grandmothers, both of my grandmothers, I couldn't wait to be that person. And that's just not how it turned out. So even though my paternal grandmother is no longer navigating earth, she is now my ancestor. Even though I wasn't able to establish that relationship with her, I thought, God, I want my grandmother left. Maybe I can do that with her. And it has really bummed me out that I could not just have these great moments, these great memories with her. And to know that the latter part of my memories with her are like back and forth arguments, her not speaking to me, navigating all these different emotional moods and like that makes me sad. That makes me sad that it's not enough positive memories and it's constant bickering and going back and forth and me walking away from arguments that I didn't start and me trying to talk to her like a weird, why is your purview like this? And also recognizing that she is a Southern Black woman, but sometimes you think your elders are progressive and then you start having conversations with them and you realize they were never progressive. It's just framing. Framing is very prevalent among our elders. So it's a lot of grief that I'm experiencing. It's a lot of mental exhaustion that I'm experiencing. And I just hope that somebody can be the ancestral starter, the cycle starter, the cycle breaker and starter, and shift the dynamics in your lineage. I mean, unfortunately, my grandmother's lineage stops with me. So I'm unable to have, as far as I know, I'm unable to have physical children. Will I adopt somebody? That I don't know. I might. I don't know what the cards hold for me as far as children is concerned, like actual human children. I don't know what the cards hold for me as it pertains to human children. So maybe the lineage doesn't stop with me, but at the time of this recording, the lineage stops with me. So there are just so many things that I am in constant thought with and how I'm shifting something, even if it's not with my grandmother's direct lineage, but maybe it's with cousins. Maybe it is with the aunt who sees me. Maybe it's somebody else who sees me and that impacts them and they shift things in their particular lineage. So I'm thinking about my own personal impact and how showing up in the world influences that and how I could be a good role model for myself, my inner child, my inner teenager, but also be an example for those who are watching me and coming behind me because I got younger cousins. So I hope they see cousin Siobhan and be like, oh, she lived her life. She did this, she did that. I hope I'm able to make that impact. I hope my nephew, as he grows up, gets to say, my TT Shasha. That's he can't talk yet, but that's the name. My TT Shasha was this, that, and da 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 da, and she was great and she was amazing and she did this. I hope that I could leave a legacy impact that allows them to shift and break generational cycles and encourages them to become a cycle starter. Yeah, okay. Now I'm done with the audio journal. Now I'm done. But if this resonates with you, I hope something I shared was helpful and impactful for you that allows you to make shifts in your own family. Yeah. Thank you for tuning into the Muses Lab podcast. Until we meet again. Thank you for tapping into this week's adventure. As always, don't forget to share the wealth with your community. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. And to deep dive into the Muses Lab, join my Substack community at siobhanl.substack.com. For more information, hop into the show notes for references and ways to connect. Meet you on our next adventure.